This is Gemara Rosh HaShanah Daf Zayin. The learning for this week has been generously sponsored as a schos for myself and the entire Chabura, that we should all continue to be able to learn together with the same fire, excitement, clear, clarity, concise, for many, many more Masechtas Daf and ultimately the entire Shas Mir Tashem. As well as a schos shidduch v'yisholchem and the version remember as it's the Gidol Shadaz v'Shanamakal Mordechai Dav Meshendel as the Gidol Bas Dav Meshendel. As well as the schos for Shlema for Shmuel Yosef ben and Yefrida Lizabela Bas Sarah Etel and Menuvah Chaim and Sarah Shlomo ben Shlomo Sivan Ritzali Dozar Bas Kanandi Bas Yemas Reisa Yisrael Ben Delay Bread Jalei Shomas Naomi B'Shavik Shechana Shmo Ben Tila Dinam Chan Rizal Mechaim Azmin Ali Dinena Bashmin Mindol Svi Ben Figure Nicholas Hora Nathali Ahuba Rivka Bas Vashav Naftali Svi Mechalaster B'Soishar Chayli Yisrael. We are holding on the bottom of Avim Beis, about 12 lines on the bottom. First one line is Chamisha. Before we begin, I just would like to invite everyone. The shirim now, or Baruch Hashem, going to be as well posted on Shas Illuminated, an absolutely fabulous and fascinating website that has Ian shirim on every single daf. If you ever have an extra 40 minutes, 50 minutes, you want to really dig your teeth into something, you go there, you get a clear, beautiful Ian shir in English on every single daf. Our shirim are going to be there as well. Whoever wants to, for all the people there that want something, nice quick chazara or just to learn it the first time. So I avail everyone to check it out over there and to make use of that reference. But of course, we'll continue sending it out with WhatsApp and all the other platforms. Let's get to it. Says the Gemara, Ba'i Rav Zira, Yoirish Mahu B'Baal Ta'acher. What is the status of a Yoirish with regard to Baal Ta'acher? Baal Ta'acher, a discussion that really brought us all the way back to Daf Beis. The discussion that when you make a neder, you make an adava, you have to give a carbon. Tzedakah, Cherem, Hektish, all the cases. You have a specific amount of time to pay it back. If you don't pay it back within the 3 regalim, whether the 3 regalim have to be in order. We had cheetahs that meant 2 regalim, 1 regal, sukkis, etc. But what is the status of a Yairish? What is the status when someone inherits something? Is he bound by the same laws? Says the Gemara, Kisider neder amrachman of perhaps it's only when it's a neder. And for this child, it's not a neder. He inherited it. He didn't make the neder. Another pasuk, the pasuk that's the source for that, say that whenever you go up to Eiler Regel, you got to bring your carbon. And he's machayiv to go to Eiler Regel. So seemingly you should be machayiv to bring the carbon as well. So ask the Gemara fundamental shayla, what is the status of an inheritor, a Yairish, with regard to Baal Ta'acher? Says the Gemara, Tashema, let's bring your raya. The Tani Rav Chia me'amecha. Me'imach, the pasuk says me'imach of you, which says prat li Irish, a singular you, the one that made the dender, the one that has the obligation of the carbon, and not the one that inherits it. And therefore, says the Gemara, seemingly an inheritor is not bound by the same Baal Ta'acher. Ask the Gemara 1 second, why me'imach mi'bayle? We need the me'imach. If you go back to the Raisa, we use this for something else. That leket shechopeya. This teaches us the halachas of all the manas aniyim, all the different parts. If you drop a sheaf, if you drop some grain, you drop a bundle, you have to leave over a corner. All the different halachas of giving to aniyim that are also bound by Baal Ta'acher. Answers the Gemara, karbe imach, v'karbe me'imach. The extra mem allows us to learn a second halacha, so not only do we learn out about the manas aniyim, but as well we learn out that a Yeresh is not included in Baal Ta'acher. Says the Gemara, another question. We're going to have a bunch of these questions about Baal Ta'acher. That was question number 1 of Rav Zera for today. Question number 2. Ba'i Rav Zera, Isha Mahiba Baal Ta'acher. What is the status of a woman with regard to Baal Ta'acher? Do we say a woman has no chiyav re'iyah, which means to see the Beis HaMikdash, meaning there's no chiyav of a woman to be Eiler Regel, to go up to the Beis HaMikdash. Or perhaps, another component of being Eiler Regel is the simcha, to be misamech, to rejoice and happy on Yantif. And a woman does have that halacha, and therefore maybe she should be included. So is a woman included or excluded from the halachas of Baal Ta'acher? Amrlei Abaya, v'teibeklei, we should learn out from the fact that she has to be besimcha. Her mitzvah of rejoicing requires her to go up to the Beis HaMikdash. So seemingly she has a din of Baal Ta'acher. Ask the Gemara, Mi Amar Abaya, Hachi, does Abaya really say that? V'Amar Abaya, Isha Baila Misamcha. A woman, her husband has the obligation to be Misamecher. She doesn't have her own obligation, so seemingly she also doesn't have her own obligation about Ta'acher. Answers the Gemara, Lidvar of the Rav Zeir Kamar. Abaya was saying to Rav Zeir, according to you, a woman should yes have a chiyav, and that is how the Gemara concludes. That Abaya is saying, according to Rav Zeir, a woman has an obligation of Baal Ta'acher. Ask the Gemara a question. We said back, we spoke about a Bachar. The firstborn has to be brought within the year, yesterday's daf. Ask the Gemara, when do we count a year with regard to Bachar? Abaye Amar Mishashin Noilad, Rav Achbar Yaakov Amar Mishashin Nira Lahartzah. Is it when the animal is born, then you have to bring the Bachar, you have 1 year to bring it, or Mishash Hartzah, the time that it's able to be brought as a carbon, meaning day 8. Allah that we learned yesterday that an animal is not allowed to be brought as a carbon until it's 8 days old. So a fundamental shaila says the Gemara, when is a Bachar called a year? With the year, obviously, which has the parameters, that's when you could bring it as the din of Bachar. Is it for 1 year from the day it's born, or is it a year from the 8th day when it would be allowed to be brought as a carbon? It says the Gemara, and those are the two opinions, Abaya and Rav Achbar Yaakov. Now the Gemara explains that in reality, there's no machlekes between the two of them. Ha bitam, one Rav Achbar Yaakov is talking about a tam, an animal which is complete, like the last Rashi says, which is able to be brought as a carbon. Moving over to today's daf of the Zayin Amar Aleph, ha b'Baal Mum, whereas Abaya is referring to a Baal Mum. So when it's a Baal Mum, you get a year from birth. When it's not a Baal Mum, you get a year from the 8th day. Ask the Gemara, Baal Mum, is a Baal Mum able to be eaten from the day it was born? That's not true, because on the day it's born, you never know, maybe the animal's going to die tomorrow, and you have to know it's a ben kayama, it's a viable animal, an animal that's not waiting to die. Answers the Gemara, no, it's a full-term animal you assume is going to live. So that's the machlekes. Abaye says a year of a Baal Mum from the day it's born if it's a full-term animal, whereas Rav Achbar Yaakov says a year from day 8 if it is a complete animal that can be brought as a carbon. Tanu Rabbanan, says the Gemara, we just finished discussing the entire halacha of Nissan being the new year with regard to Nedarim, with regard to Baal Ta'acher. Says the Gemara, there's other practical ramifications of Nissan as well. Tanu Rabbanan, Be'echad ben Nissan, Rosh HaShanah l'chadshim. We know Nissan is the first month. Uli Burim, and for making a leap year, Uli Trumas Shkalim, and for separating the Shkalim, V'yesh Aimrim Aflas Chiras for renting. And now the Gemara is going to go through these 5 halachas, the Chadshim, the months, Iburim, the leap years, Shkalim, and renting the houses. 4 halachas, excuse me. Minalan, L'chadshim, says Gemara. How do you know that Nisan is the first month with regard to Chadashim, with regard to months? The Chsev says the Torah Chadash Lechem Rosh Chadashim Rishanu Lechem L'chadshei Hashanah. This month should be the first month. It should be for the first months of the year. And the pasuk continues. Dabrel Kol Das Bnei Yisrael. Go talk to Klai Yisrael Leimer Tanem Be'asar L'chadshei Hashanah the month as Dev Yichulem Ish Sel Beisav Beisel Labayis. They should take a sheep. This is the carbon Pesach. Vayulachem the Mishmeres, and you watch that sheep out of until the 14th day of the month, of this month, and you shecht it. So we see very clearly what month are we referring to. We're talking about Nisan, we're talking about Pesach, we're talking about Pesach, and it starts off the first month. So we see Nisan is the first of the months. Uksiv, and there's another part that says Shamar is Aviv. Now we're actually proving even deeper. How do we know Pesach is in Nisan? Because it says you should guard the Chodesh Aviv, the month of the Aviv, literally meaning the ripening of the produce. When is the month that has ripening produce? So that's how we see that Nisan is the first of the month. Rosh Chadash in the first month. On that month is Pesach, when you bring the carbon Pesach, and it says that Aviv, when the fruit is ripe, and that is during the month of Nisan, effectively proving that Nisan is the first of the months. Ask Zimara 1 second, maybe it's ER. Because here as well, the grains become ripe. Answers Gemara, Bi'ina Aviv Valeka. It has to be that Pesach is during the month that the first ripening produce, and that's not here. It's true, there's some produce ripening, but it's not the first ripening produce. Similarly, says the Gemara, Ve'ima Adar, and on that the Gemara answers, Bi'ina Roiv Aviv Valeka. So it has to be the first ripening and the majority of the ripening, Valeka, and therefore, it can't be in ER, and it can't be in Adar. Ask the Gemara, Midi Roiv Aviv Ksiv. That's not what the pasuk says. It says Aviv Chag Aviv, ripening. So I understand you tell me it's the first ripening. It's not ER. Fine, but how do you know it needs the majority of the ripening? There's many things that ripen as well in Adar. Elam Rav Chisda Nusor Smehach. On the 15th of the month, when you gather in the grain in your field. When is the month that you gather in the grain? Tishrei. This is Tishrei when you gather in the grain. And we call it the 7th month. So you go backwards from Tishrei. 7th month prior is Nissan. So when's the first month? Nissan. 7 months later you bring in the grain. That is in Tishrei. Frak the Gemara asked the Gemara of Mar Cheshvan. Maybe it's referring to Mar Cheshvan my Shvi Li'iyar, and it means the 7th of Iyar. And that's why it's and we're really going in Cheshvan. Again, the Gemara says a similar teretz. Bina asif v'leka needs the month when you're gathering in the produce that is not true of Mar Cheshvan. Ve'ima elo. Again, the same teretz being a roi v'asif v'leka. That's when the majority of the crop is gathered, and that's not true during Elul. Ask the Gemara the exact same question. Midi roi v'asif, because it doesn't say that. It just says gathering in the produce. Elam Ravina, attempt number 3. So we started with the month of ripening. We started with the month of gathering. Attempt number 3 says Ravina. This matter we learned from Moshe Rabbeinu. He did not learn it. Excuse me. We didn't learn this from Moshe Rabbeinu. But we learned it from the words of Kabbalah. Kabbalah always referring to Navi. That what did the pasuk in the Navi say? On the 24th of the 11th month. Oh, Chodesh Shvat. A very clear and explicit pasuk is Shvat. If Shvat is the 11th month, Nisan is the first month. And now we're going to have 5 different psukim in Navi, where each one is going to explicitly prove to us that Nisan is the first month. That was number 1, that the 11th month is Shvat. Esther was taken to the king Achashverosh to his kingdom on the 10th month. Chodesh Teves. Again, the exact same raya that if Teves is month number 10, Nisan is month number 1. It says the 9th month is Kislev, first month is Tishrei. Third month is Sivan, first month is Nisan. So what do we see? The 12th month is Adar, first month is Nisan. Says the Gemara. Another source, first month is Nisan. So ask the Gemara, this is such an explicit pasuk. It says the first month is Nisan. So learn it out from there. Says the Gemara, maybe it just means the first of the matter, and therefore not necessarily doesn't mean the first of the month. The first time this is referring to, and therefore that's why it can't necessarily be the ultimate. Excuse me. That's why it can't necessarily be the ultimate source. And the Gemara says in our Tana and our Mishnah, why doesn't it say? It says Nisan is the first for the kings, for the shtarais. Why doesn't it say it's the first of the months? You know why? Because it's not talking about. Our Tana is not discussing ways that are relevant to months, so about ways that are relevant to the full year. And Nisan is the first with regard to months, not necessarily with regard to year, and that's why our Mishnah does not list it. And that is all the sources that Nisan is the first of the months. And now we continue. What do we continue in the first wide line? A leap Urim. We said Nisan is the first for an Iber for a leap year. Says the Gemara, Liibura Minisa Minyan. How do we know a leap year is counted from Nisan? Vatanya, we learned in a Raisa, Ein Ma'avrin Hashanah Rosh HaShanah. We don't make a leap year before Rosh HaShanah. V'mavruha, Ein Mubaris doesn't even work. You can't make a leap year before Rosh HaShanah. Avol Me'ad Chag Ma'avrin I say Acher Rosh HaShanah Miyad. If they need to, right after Rosh HaShanah, you could do it. Avol Bigain Ein Ma'avrin Ella Adar, meaning you're allowed to decide the year will be a leap year right after Rosh HaShanah, but which month is it? Adar. Says the Gemara, so why are you telling me Nisan? We see very clearly that it's not Nisan. We see very clearly that it is Adar. Amar Nachum Yitzchak, 3 lines into the wide lines. My Iburin, Hafsakas Iburin. Know what it means? It means the culmination. This is the final one, meaning that Nisan is when it ends. Adar Beis is going to be, the second Adar is going to be your leap year, and it ends at Nisan. Titznan, and Eidu Shemavir Nashana Kol Adar Sheyoimrim Araporim. Excuse me. Hey Eidu, they gave testimony, Shemavir Nashana Kol Adar, that you can make a leap year the entire Adar. Sheyoimrim, they would say Adaporim. Because they were saying until Purim, the 14th of Adar, my time demand Damar Ada Purim, Kivan Damar Mar. Since we learn Shailin Bilchas Pesach Kodem LePesach Shoshim Yaim, since we have to learn 30 days all halachas of Pesach, so when do we start on Purim? Again, we have a machlokes. When is a final moment to make a leap year? Do you have the whole month of Adar or just until Purim? Says the Gemara, you know why you only have until Purim? Because when do you start learning halachas Pesach? On Purim. So once you start learning halachas Pesach, everyone's going to think, well, it's Pesach in 30 days from now. Comes up as din. No, it's in an extra month. So you're going to be mezalzel. What does that mean? A fascinating Rashi. Rashi says, once Purim is already learning the darshanim are teaching everyone the halachas of Pesach, and therefore they're going to make Pesach after 30 days. And if Bezdin comes along and says, no, lo yiskablu, they're not going to listen to Bezdin, and rather they're going to think it's Pesach. They're going to think it's Pesach when Bezdin said it's not Pesach. And of course, that means you're going to come to mezalzel and chama. It's fascinating. That's that man to Amar. Back into the Gemara of Edach made the Adi the Shasim Harvata, but Chashban Atal Yomel said, no, everyone's going to know it's all totally in calculations. Vesavri Chashbno Dlosal Klu Rabbanan and Idna, and they'll realize Chazal, the Rabbanan, and the Bezdin didn't get a chance to make calculations till now, but we're not afraid they're going to be mezalzel. V'tanati done. B'aschol Kamari B'afsakol Kamari. Our Mishnah, why does it not list that Nissan is the first for the Iber, for the leap year? Because it's talking about our Mishnah, it's talking about the beginning, and not the Afsaka, not the culmination, not the final date for the leap year. And what was the third case in the Brisa with regard to Nissan was for Chumas Shkalim. Says the Gemara about 8 lines from the bottom of the Av Vinol, and where do we know this from? Amar Rav Yishaya Amar Kra. Zois Oilas Chodesh Bechadshai. Says in the Torah, this is the carbon oil of the new moon, as it's renewed. L'chad Hashanah. Excuse me, having issues today. L'chad Hashanah. Amra Taira Chadish v'Habei Carbon. Renew and bring a carbon mitzuma Chadasha from the new Truma, from the new funds, the new Shkalim that are brought to the Beis HaMikdash. And therefore, that's the source that, with regard to Trumas Shkalim, it comes from Nissan. Now Nissan is the date where we say these are the new shkalim and these are the old shkalim, and that's why, because we have to know when we bring the karbanos which shkalim to use. Why don't we learn the word shana with regard to shana for Nissan? Or maybe we should learn that from Tishrei. Says the Gemara, how do you know it's referring to Nissan? Answers the Gemara, it's more comparable to Nissan because it's a Shana with Chadashim and not a Shana without Chadashim. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, 4 lines on the bottom. Karbana Isibar Abban Bechad Ben Nisan Mitzvah Lahavi Min HaChadash. The first of Nisan, you got to bring for the new Shkalim. V'meivi Min HaYashan. If you brought for the old Shkalim Yatsi, it's okay. Ella Shachisar Mitzvah, you lost out on the Mitzvah. Tanam Yachiv, we have a Bryce that says the same detail. Karbana Isibar Abban Bechad Ben Nisan Mitzvah Lahavi Min HaChadash. The new Shkalim. V'meivi Min HaYashan Yasa. Ella Shachisar Mitzvah. Rather, you just lost your Mitzvah. V'yachish and is not in Mishal. V'yachid makes a neder. It makes a nedava to give from his own. Kasherin, you're allowed to give it to the Beis HaMikdash. Belvad, Shimzer and Lesiber. As long as, meaning if he wants to bring a carbon from his own and he wants to give it to the Beis HaMikdash, you're allowed to. But you have to give it to the Seber. It's not your carbon, it's the Seber's carbon. So if you want to give your animal for the public's carbon, you have to give it to the Seber. Says the Gemara Shkayach Pshita, of course you have to give it. It's a Seber carbon, it's a public carbon. Mao the Tema explains the Gemara, I would have thought, Lecha Shema, we should be concerned perhaps moving over to Zainam and Beis Lo Yimshon LeSiber Yafa Yafa. Maybe he won't give it over to the Seber with a good eye. But as Rashi in the top line says, believe Shalei, maybe he won't really give it over. Kamash Malan, then no. We allow you to do it, that if you want to give your carbon for the public's carbonais, no problem. Tana Didan and our Tana, why doesn't it list? Again, the same Gasha. Our Tana doesn't list Nissan with regard to the new Shkalim. Kim Dekatani, maybe Yatza Leipsikale. Because this halacha with regard to the shkalim is only a lechatchila. Lechatchila Nissan, you should bring for the new shkalim. But b'diavad, that if you didn't, it's yaitza. You're yaitza, and that's why our Mishnah did not list this case in the list of the Rosh Hashanahs of Nissan. And this is the fourth case of the price on the top of Amud Aleph that we spoke about, that Nissan is the first month, af l'schiras batim, for rental of houses. Tanu Rabbanan says the Gemara Zayin Amud Beis, 4 lines down, ha-mascher bais l'chaver l'shana, you rent a house to your friend for 1 year. Maynim shnei masach chodesh. How long is a year? With some similar to the discussion we had yesterday, says the Gemara, you count 12 months, miyayim liyayim. V'im amar lishana zu. Let's say I say I'm renting you a house for this year. What does this year mean? Afilu lo yamad el bechab. It's the first of Adar. And then, kivin shegia yom echad b'Nisan. Once the first of Nisan comes, this year ends. Al salai shana, to new calendar year with regard to rentals. So if on the first of Adar I say I'm renting you a house for a year, you get 12 months to the next Adar. But if I say for this year ends in a month. And it explains the Gemara. Like we saw on Daf Beis, even if you hold that 1 day could be a year, shiny hacha. This case is different. Over here we said on the first of Adar, you have to have a full month, not on the 29th of Adar. Why? No one will go and rent a house for less than 30 days. Ve'ema Tishrei. Why don't we say that it begins on Tishrei? Why are you telling me that with regard to rentals it goes with Nissan? Explains the Gemara. When you rent the house, you want it for the rainy season. Tishrei is the middle of the rainy season, so it's obviously not your intention. Your intention is through the winter all the way to Nissan. And the first down on the Braisa, or V'tana Didan in our Mishnah. Why doesn't it list that Nissan is the new year, the first month with regard to rental of houses? But he said, because he disagrees, because there are clouds during Nissan, and therefore our Mishnah holds that Nissan, if I say I'm renting you for this year, it doesn't end in Nissan, because Nissan also is a bit of a rainy time, and one wants to rent the house for that time period as well. So that's going to be the debate between our Mishnah and the Braisa, whether Nissan is going to be, and actually say 2 shitas in the Braisa, because it's the Yesh Aimer in the Braisa, whether Nissan will be the new year with regard to rental of houses. Now, says the Gemara, we're back into the Mishnah. After 5-6 days, I should say, almost a whole week, we get into the second din of the Mishnah. Rosh HaShanah. Then the first of Elul is Rosh HaShanah for Ma'aser Behema. Money. Who is the opinion of the Mishnah? Rameir. He did Tanya Rameir Omer. Rosh HaShanah Ma'aser Behema. Who is the opinion that holds that Elul is the cutoff time for Ma'aser Behema? Rameir. So this din in the Mishnah is Rameir. The obvious kasha is, anyone who's been thinking since Daf Beis, we started off on Daf Beis, we said, who's the Mishnah? We said Regalim, Kisidron, in order of Shimon. Well, the Regalim, Mani, Rav Shimoni. By Regalim, the first part of the Mishnah was Rav Shimon. Now the second din of the Mishnah is Rameir. And then what are the seif of the Mishnah? Seima, Seima, Rav Laz, Rav Shimon, Aimrim, Bechav, Tishrei, Reisha, Echva, Tishrei. Ask the Gemara, Reisha, Vesefer, Rav Shimon, Mitzyaza, Rameir, what's going on over here? Case number 1 is Rav Shimon. Case number 3 is Rav Shimon. Case number 2 is Rameir. Very difficult. Amar Rav Yosef answers Rav Yosef an interesting and unique teretz. Rabbi v'nasla aliba de Tanai. Really, the opinion of the Mishnah is Rabbi, and Rabbi brought down different opinions in the Mishnah that Rabbi held like. So it's true. There's Rav Shimon on this and Rameir on this, because Rabbi held like Rav Shimon in din 1 and 3, and Rameir in din 2. But Regalim suffer like Rav Shimon, and Ma'aser suffer like your Rameir. Ask the Gemara. Fine, beautiful. So it's Rabbi, and Rabbi's telling you how he held. On din 1 it's Rav Shimon, and din 3 it's Rav Shimon, and din 2 it's Rameir. But I asked the Gemara, there's not 4, now there's 5 Rosh Hashanahs. We thought there were 4 because there's a machlekes in the middle, but it's a Rameir bringing down all the opinions. Now there's 5. Amar Rava, Arba l'divrei akol. The Mishnah says Arba Rosh HaShanah. The first word in the Mishnah of the box. What's the 4? 4 that everyone agrees to. The Rameir Arba dal Regalim, 4 without Regalim. Rav Shimon Arba dal Ma'aser Behema. And that is the 4 in the Mishnah. Teretz number 1. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Amar, teretz number 2. Arba chadashim ubahem kama Rosh Hashanah. Which is, I believe, in the Shir Live, this is how we explained it. There are 4 dates, and on those 4 dates, 4 months, I should say, there are multiple permutations. How many it could be? That's Rav Nachman Yitzchak explains the Mishnah. Ask the Gemara 1 second. Meisvein, with this we're going to conclude. Shisha Nissan Rosh HaShanah. The 60th of Nissan is the first year for Omer. Shisha b'Sivan Rosh HaShanah l'shtei alechem. On the 6th of Sivan, Shavuos is for the shtei alechem. So says the Gemara, what's going on over here? L'Rava lisni Shisha, Rav Nachar bar Yitzchak lisni Chamisha. What's going on? According to Rava, we now have 6 months. According to Rav Nachar bar Yitzchak, we have 5 different dates. So why does the Mishnah say 4? The Mishnah only lists dates that start at night. The Jewish calendar day starts at night. But this Brisa were unique cases that started by day. The Karban Omer is only when you bring the Omer by day. With the Shtei Alechem is only brought by day. And that's why we don't list these in the Mishnah. Ask the Gemara of Ari Gralim by Yom Tayvim. Don't start at night. With regard to Nedarim, because we're talking about the Neder to bring to the Beis HaMikdash was only by day, and yet illicit. Answers the Gemara, Kiva and Shesarach La'isui Me'ikara Mechayim. No, the moment you make the Neder, that's the moment, and that starts at night. Mechayim V'koi, that starts at night, therefore it actually does begin at night, even by Regalim. We're going to stop over here. The Gemara is going to keep on going into all the different cases, figuring out if they indeed start at night. We'll pick up from Yovel Hashem tomorrow.